everybody, and welcome to the intro of Real and Awkward. I am your host, Cassandra, and this is a co host.
Hi guys, I'm Oliver. I'll be your co-host.
And so, for this intro episode, we'll call it, it's going to talk about like what our purpose is of the podcast, who we are, and just our dynamic with each other and how we met, and all that fun stuff. So, the purpose of this podcast is to talk about everything and anything. It's going to talk about from mental health. It's going to talk about how it was or how it is being in living in a Mexican household from a guy's perspective, from a girl's perspective. It's going to talk about breakups. It's going to talk about school, college, high
Yep.
school, what it is, how it was when we went to high school and how it is for students now. We're going to talk about almost everything. We pretty much just want to talk. This podcast is going to say like our real life experiences, our real life stories. We don't want to do any of that, like any cookie cutter, anything like that. It's going to be real. There are going to be moments where it's awkward, hence the title Real and Awkward. So we'll go ahead and we'll say who we are. So I am 26. I have my master's in business admin, and I'm proud to be Mexican American. And I love Disney, anything Disney, Disney movies. My favorite Disney princess is Snow White. And I know she's not a princess, but I love Tinkerbell too. And yeah, so we'll move it on to Oliver.
Hey guys, so I'm Oliver Jimenez. I'm going to be your co-host. First, before anything, I do want to thank you, Cassandra, for inviting me to be part. I think of this amazing journey. I think I'm excited, and I hope all of you are as well. Just like Cassandra said, we're going to keep it real. It's going to be something that I think has been missing from a lot of things that we've been watching out there. We want to keep it casual. We want to keep it very connected to the topics of the days that we normally don't talk about on a daily basis, right? I think it's very important that we talk about from mental health to relationships, and it's important. And I think a story, right? I think something that has always been missing is that connection. How can we can keep that connection between the topics we talk about? How can we relate? It's not a lecture, we don't want to make it sound like a lecture. We want to make it sound like there is a connection, and I think that's why story is going to be important. That's so you're going to hear that word a lot throughout this podcast. Story is going to be the key word for a lot of the episodes. We'll keep it fun, we'll keep it real, but above everything, we want to make sure that you enjoy this. This is for all of you. And I think yeah, a little bit on myself. I'm Oliver Jimenez. I am 30 years old, and I'm a book nerd. I love to read. I love politics too, so Cassandra knows all good about that. How much I am involved with government and politics. I love to give back to my community, volunteer, empower community, and I'm very proud of our culture. And that's why a lot of the component that we have in the podcast, we'll talk a lot about our customs, our culture, and a lot of our traditions throughout holidays and special dates that mean a lot to us during throughout the entire year. So we hope that, you join us. This is the kickoff, if you will, but we're very much looking forward to it and excited.
Yeah, guys. So we'll move on to our next segment, which would be a story time segment of how we met. Do you wanna?
Yes, story time. Like I said, you're gonna hear that very, very often. So um I think it's important before we even kick off with any first episode, right, or with any topic, that you understand. I think the chemistry behind both of us, and how the origin of how we are friends became, right. It wasn't your typical high school friend story. Believe me, when I say that, it's you'll once you hear it, you'll make your own conclusion. But yeah, pretty much the way Cassandra and I came about knowing each other was back in high school. I had already graduated, and I would go back to visit. At the time, my brother was, class president. He would invite me to go help him out. So at the time, my girlfriend was running uh, for a class position in ASB, and I remember that's the first time I knew, because not by name. I think it was more seeing you around, school. And I'm like, who is that girl with the curly hair? I just remember curly hair. That's all that stayed with me. And I think ultimately the first interaction I had with you, not directly, I want to say, I think it was more, indirect, but right away I knew it was my girlfriend. She was trying to help you put up a banner during lunchtime, and I'm like, wait, who is this girl? Why are you helping her? And then my girlfriend tells me, oh, her name is Cassandra. She's running against me. And I'm like, wait, she's running against you and you're helping her put up a banner? I'm like, no, why are we helping her? If anything, you should be taking it down. But very, very friendly way, not like we're gonna rip her to the couch. Just like, no, like let's take it back down. So that was my first experience, if you will, with Cassandra Sandoval, right? But ultimately, as time went on, I stayed with that impression of her that she was the enemy, because of the campaign. I'm like, no, she's gonna be my girlfriend. There's no way. And ultimately, that's what ended up happening, right? I think you ended up
Yeah,
winning.
I won fair and square. Okay, I won. We were freshmen running for sophomore position, so there was four positions. The first one being chair, meaning you whoever wins that
Right.
position, sophomore rep chair, they got or they won with the most votes, and then it was your other three representatives, so total of four. So not to toot my own horn or whatever, but I got sophomore rep chair, and we got polos and it said sophomore rep chair, and I got a little like my little name tag and everything. It said Cassandra, or oh, just Cassandra Sandal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, so I
And
won.
that didn't help the cause here because now I'm like, well, my girlfriend helped her, and look, she won. She beat my girlfriend. I mean, my girlfriend ended up being in there as well, but she was in chair. Cassandra was the chair because she received the highest amount of votes. That's why she was able to get, the chair
Because everybody
title.
likes me.
Yeah, you can say that. But I remain with that, right? That sour taste. I'm like, look, like we helped her, that didn't even help us, and I told her. So as time went on, I was able to really engage more with her in conversation and seeing what she was about. And ultimately, I we invited her. I think it was a game night, right? We were have game
Is
nights a
that what it
lot.
was?
Yeah, I think
Or
we
was
were
it
having
was it to like get to know each other? I think that's what it was.
that's right. It
It
was
was
when they hosted your cabinet, right? I think it was to
no, I think it was when I could have sworn I thought I remember the Onicio.
that's what it
Yeah,
was.
because I
Yeah.
was sophomore.
Yeah. Yeah. So at the time, my brother hosted that new incoming class of representatives,
And he
and it
was
was
just a
here.
junior.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it was here at our home, and that's where I started to, interact more with Cassandra outside of the realm of politics or campaigning, if you will, right? And she was super cool, down to earth. I think we briefly started talking. I'm like, you know what? I clearly had the wrong impression about her,
Clearly.
and I think after that, it's just everything became history. We just started getting really close, and we started sharing a lot of things with each other. And I think ultimately that led to the concept that we have now. Little did we know, right, that concept of us feeling so comfortable with each other was going to be the biggest component of how our friendship not only would grow, but it would remain, right, for things that were to come down after that. So I think fast forward to now, um, I can tell you that Cassandra and I are very, very close, and to the point where we tell each other everything. Cassandra is my advisor. She's my confidant. She's my working journal. Many occasions she tells me that she's like, I'm your walking journal. So I'm like, okay, well, either we have to be really close friends because you know everything about me. She knows every detail, every dark
Or I got
secret.
it.
Yeah, you know. But no, all joking aside, she does know a lot and I think not so much because early on I wasn't someone that would share a lot of things. But I think with her, like I said earlier, that component of me feeling comfortable around her allowed me to open up when I wouldn't open up to a lot of people. It took a lot for me to open up, back in high school and even after. It wasn't something that I would do just naturally. I think right away my mentality was I don't want to overwhelm people with my problems, so why? They're going through their own things, right? So I think 2018, fast forward to 2018, at this point we had created a good foundation, I think, about our friendship, game nights, and I learned so much more about her and like how she was so connected with her culture too. Like she loves to dance. Believe you me when I say she
Believe you me.
loves to dance. Like if you don't know Cassandra, I mean, we'll probably have a video just of her dancing, giving you showing you dance moves. But this girl knows how to dance. Like I, on the other hand, cannot dance to save my life. Okay, so I'm gonna have to learn from her. Um, but 2018, I think, was the year that ultimately put our friendship to the test, and not, I think, in a way where we were arguing anything like that, but I think around this time too, we kind of distanced ourselves too, right? We talked about how we kind of were around each other, but not so much. And I think a lot of this had to do with my
I
girlfriend
think,
at the time.
but it also had to do with me being in college because I
Yeah,
was an undergrad. So I was really just trying to focus um on my
yeah,
schooling. Not that I was on like a scholarship or anything, but it's just my fear was always to be placed on academic probation, and I was
yeah,
like, okay, I can't really have anything that's distracting me
yeah.
gonna be put in the way of me not getting good grades or whatnot. So yeah, so we did become distant for not a long time, but
Yeah,
it was maybe what, a year or two.
yeah, and I think it was we wouldn't hang out as
Yeah.
often, right? Because as she said, she was busy with homework. I think every time we would have either a game night, bonfire, or even a lot of our birthday parties, right? She was always. I think I would always get the same answer. I have homework. I have to.
Have a
I remember
presentation.
her. Yeah, her famous phrase is, "I have homework. I have a presentation to do.
I
I'm
have
studying
a
for a final." Oh my god! Like, I knew them backwards already. I knew, I'm like, which ones are going to be. I was almost like playing bingo with those three
or
phrases,
family.
or family. Oh my god, that's we're gonna have to create its own episode of when she would tell me about her family when she was, I can't go because I have this thing with the family. It was a whole family tree. Like it was, I'll go into detail in some episode, but you'll see why it needs its own episode.
Believe you me.
Believe you me. So 2018 was a very tough year. I think I'm a big advocate for mental health, and I'm not ashamed to say that I did go through depression and anxiety, especially in 2018, and we'll talk about it in another episode with more detail, because I think it does merit its own time for us to discuss this and really break it down, because I think even just talking about it briefly doesn't do it any justice, right? But 2018 was a very tough year for me. I did go through a breakup, and
We both did.
that's right. We both
We
did.
both
We
did.
both did. I think months apart, right? It was months
Yeah, it
apart.
was really close.
And I think because again the we were so focused on the things, and again me not wanting to share with anyone, I was not aware that she was going through that. I think until after when
Mine
she
was
told
in
me
February and yours was in what?
in April.
April?
Mine was
Yeah.
in
Oh
April.
yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't that far apart, right? So I think I told myself I can handle this. I can deal with this. It'll pass over. It did not pass over. It became more and more overwhelming. It became more and more draining and tired. And I think I just finally had it. And I think I had posted something on social media, and it was something along the lines like, now I look back, and it was a goodbye. It really was a goodbye. And it was tough because everything at that point had led to me feeling there was no exit. I was very tired. I was drained. I was overwhelmed. I couldn't sleep. I stopped eating. And it became this cycle where I no longer believed there was anything else after that, right?
No purpose.
No purpose. And when I something told me, right, and I think it's I'm a big believer that people are in your life. They come into your life in the moment that you most need them, right? Whether that's to teach you something, whether that's to remind you of something. And even though Cassandra was already in my life, because of the distance, I felt like, who can I talk to, right? She's going through her own things because of her breakup, but college on top of that too. There was a lot of stress.
Did you know though that I was going through my
I
breakup?
I don't I think briefly it was mentioned when we had seen
Oh, I
each
was like, I
other.
told you.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it wasn't into the detail that after we got into it, right? Once I told her
Right.
what I had
Yeah.
gone through, and
Yeah.
so I think that's when both of us allowed ourselves to be vulnerable with each other, right? Which we
For
hadn't
sure.
done before, at least not to that extent,
Yeah.
not in that level.
Oh, quick little break. Um, so we left off. Oh, yes. So now my POV from. So if I'm being quite honest with you, Oliver scared the crap out of me. um, he was because I don't think I'm not intimidated by him anymore. But he was very, very intimidating. But I think at the same time, high school me was very, very shy.
Yeah,
I think I was super duper quiet,
yeah,
really reserved, really kept to myself. And yeah, he was a big guy. So, and I'm a tiny gal. So, so yeah, I was like, yo, like this guy already graduated. Like, why is he even here? Why is he? I mean, but I get it because, he was in ASB in
yeah,
high school. So, of course, you want to see what the future ASB members are doing. So, I get that. But at the time, I was for sure intimidated by him. I think I only knew you as your girlfriend's boyfriend.
boyfriend or my brother's brother,
Yeah,
older brother,
or Chris's
right?
brother,
Yeah,
Chris's older
yeah,
brother.
yeah,
So those are the only two things that I knew him by. I didn't know his name or anything until we had it was my sophomore
yeah,
year, and we got there was like a get to know each
yeah,
other type little event for just us ASB members, and it was here at Chris and Oliver's house. So I think that's where I got to chat with him a little bit more, and I was like, okay, he's not that bad. He's not as scary as I thought. Um, but yeah, going from what was that, 2012?
yeah. 2012.
Whoa,
Yeah, 2012. It's
2012.
been
Wow.
a minute.
Like a long minute. So in 2012, fast forward from 2012 to 2018, there was a time, a little gap
Yeah,
where we were, we were still we got close and stuff, and we were friends, but there was just a little break. One, because he was going through his, I mean, not your stuff, but like you were going on with your life,
yeah,
and I was going on with my life. Mainly school is what my main focus was. So I think there was just a bit of a distance where we didn't talk to each other as much, but when we would see each other, it was like, hey, how are you doing?
yeah,
How's it going? And then come 2018, was when I think our bond really got, or like where we really got
yeah,
connected. And it was because of how we connected on the sense of what we are going through. So, February of 2018, I was going through a breakup. I didn't really want to tell anybody that I was going through a breakup just because it was it was like my last year graduating college, so I was like, you know what, I'm in my grind. I'm not going to let this like, really affect me.
yeah,
I'm not going to let it bring me down. Like, I'm not going to let it be a distraction for me because I'm already close to the finish line and I just got to keep pushing through.
yeah,
And then a couple of months later was when Oliver is going through his breakup, but I didn't know he was going through a breakup until I had seen him post a post on Facebook. Pretty much it was a goodbye. That's how I interpret it. And I looked at it, I read it, and I was like, okay, it's kind of weird because it wasn't the type of material that he would post. It was totally random. I think I remember I was like, oh, like if I ever offended you or if I ever
yeah,
made you feel bad, like I'm really sorry. And whatnot. I forgot how it ended, but it was pretty much his goodbye to everybody.
yeah,
Um, and I had just looked past it, and then I was like, wait, no, let me go back to this. And then I was like, I think I should reach out. I know I hadn't talked to him in a while, but I just had a feeling that I had to reach out and be like, hey, are you okay? Um, and that's when he opened up and he told me like, no, not really. I'm going through a hard
yeah,
time. I'm going through a breakup. Um, I had to, Did I convince you, or how did it come about that?
I think how it came about. Um, so I was ready to completely disconnect, right, from everything and everyone that evening, and I think
Oh,
it
that
was,
day.
yeah,
So it was
yeah.
okay.
So I think you reaching out and asking that question that I think nobody had asked to that point was what changed a lot of. I think at the moment when you're going through something like that, your mind is very powerful and so set on what you're telling it that you no longer have control over it, right? And it really did take over. The thoughts were there, everything was there. I mean, again, I was tired, I was drained, I was completely just ready to say, you know what, I'm I was ready to give up. You know, I think if I can put it in terms, I was ready to give up. And your message of what's wrong
That's what I said. Huh?
was a small spark of connection to whatever was left of a reality, because nobody around me knew to
Not
that
even.
extent what was happening. And I think my family briefly knew, but
Okay.
I was hiding my pain. I was hiding what I was going through.
I don't
And
know how you hid it because when he came over my house, I was like, "You're a walking corpse."
and to this point, right? Um, I, I had I'm someone that believes no matter what I'm going through, I'm at that time. You know, I want to make that very clear. At that time, I was someone that's like, you know what, it's okay. I'm gonna get through it. I just have to keep busy. To that point, everything was business as usual, meetings, events. But even in those meetings and events, I kid you not, Cassandra, I don't remember
Attending them, right?
attending those. I don't remember what happened in those events. I look back at pictures,
Yeah.
and I think I look back at those pictures, and there was a time where I couldn't look at them. Now I can look at them, but you see in those pictures what we all, well, now what we all know. I'm there, but I'm not there.
Yeah.
You see this blank, like you said, like a walking corpse. You see this blank expression in my face. It took a lot of people to tell me the same thing. I see something in your eyes. You no longer have that spark in your eyes. And right away, I'm like, oh no, I became so good with coming up with so many excuses around this time.
You had bags under your eyes.
Yeah,
You had Gucci bags under
and
your
it was
eyes.
a lot of like, oh, I was sick, you know, there's a lot of things going on, I'm so busy. It came, I can't even remember the excuses I came up with, but it goes to show you how it was already, a lot of people were taking notice of it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because of how they would say, you no longer smile like you used to. Comments like that,
Yeah.
I would dislike. So instead of accepting my reality, I'm like, no, now I have to do something else to cover it. But see, nobody would ask what's wrong. When you asked me that, that took me back to some connection of reality. So you asking that, you really don't understand how life changing it was. I can tell you here now that it was the you reaching out that saved my life. I owe my life to you because you asked the question that nobody was asking. And it gives me chills now to think about it, because I think I wouldn't be here telling this story to you or to our audience. And that in itself, that's why I am a big believer that there's people in your lives that generally out there for a reason, and clearly your reason was to save my life. So I do owe you my life, you know, and it's something that I'm always going to be in debt to you for that. Because, and it wasn't something like, you know, I went to you because you were my friend and like that. You were the one that figured it out because of everything that was posting. Everyone saw it clearly, but nobody bothered to say, "Hey, what's wrong? Let's talk." And when we finally talked, that's when I remember just breaking down. I just remember completely everything that I was holding to that point, which had been in a period of months, completely just I gave into it. And I remember it was in your backyard. It was
Mm-hmm.
in your backyard. It was really cold.
It
It
was
was really cold. I
freezing
remember that.
cold. I remember you were wearing a trench coat.
I was wearing a
I
trench
think
coat.
you had just came from an event though.
Yeah,
That was the thing
yeah,
because you came kind of late at night.
yeah,
Not super late, but it was like
yeah,
10,
yeah.
10
It was
o'clock.
right after an event. That's when I'm like, I can no longer, you know, I can't do this anymore. and
Did you tell me that you had to talk to me, or how was it that?
I think it was more like, can I talk to you? Or I need to tell you
Right, you
something,
okay,
right?
okay,
Because
yeah,
even at that point, I'm like, I don't want to overwhelm you with what I'm going through.
yeah.
But I think you asked that again in person. You're like, what's wrong? And that's when I just completely broke down. Because one thing is over text, when you ask that in person, that's when I just felt like, and there was a lot of things going through my mind, because clearly at that point, I had already made the decision to no longer be around, right, and end my life. But it was something that, me being there even, was still, it was that light of the end of the tunnel, if you will, right? Anything after that, you listening to me and me telling you what I was going through, it took one phrase for me to really start to overpower those negative and dark thoughts. You said, you're Oliver. How is it that this can beat you? If you give up on yourself, you're giving up on all the people that you're helping and that you told one day you can do whatever you say your mind and heart to. When you told me that, that's when I'm like, no, I cannot let this defeat me. I need to move forward. I need to fight it and overpower it. And since that day on, that's what I did. It wasn't easy. You know very well that entire journey, and it was faith, with honesty. It was me believing in, never giving up on my faith, believing that that everything does happen for a reason, and that ultimately, when you have the people that you love surround you and supporting you, there's nothing that you can't overcome, right? And you played a significant role in that. I think words can't explain the big impact you had during that time, because I think it is very, I mean, we hear that cliche all the time, right? Friends, in bad times, right? When you're in the hospital and when you're in bad situations. And it is very true, though. I think I don't consider myself someone with a lot of friends. I do know a lot of people. I have a lot of people that I'm surrounded by, but friends are it's a small group, right? And I do call you my friend, with the full term of that, whatever that word means, because that is what you are to me. Not that, and I think I've said it many times in different events, right? When we have Friendsgiving too, your family. You're not just a friend. You're part of my family. And I think, if there is a phrase, it's that. How I can describe the friendship that both of us have, it's more than friendship. It's family. We have this bond that clearly it's unbreakable now, right? Don't get me wrong. We have our ups and downs. I think, but ultimately, we remember that we are not perfect. But we are equals, and that's what I told her. I'm like, look, I'm never gonna lecture you on things. If I tell you
Yeah.
something, it's because it's my experience. I'm gonna give you my experience on it, and ultimately the decision will be yours. I'm not gonna tell you, hey, do this, do that. No, because it's not my place. But as your friend, it is my place to say, you know what, I think that this is what you should do. But ultimately, here's the tools. You make the decision. I don't think there's ever been a time where even you have told me, hey, I don't like this, so don't do it. You're always like, I think this is that, but ultimately you make the decision,
Yeah.
Oliver. And in everything from a lot of the important decisions that I've made in my life, whether personal or professional, Cassandra has been, my advisor to them, and because again, this connection that you and I have is it goes beyond just the friendship level, the personal level, right? Even professionally, because both of us are involved in that sense. You understand the work that I do, and I understand the work that you do. I go to you for that advice. It's like, what do you think? And I think, because you know very well my abilities and my weaknesses, you're like, you know what? Maybe it's something that you should think about or wait on it, right? But ultimately, that sets this pillar of trust, communication that we have, that I think is very unbreakable, And it's not because it's a perfect system that we have, but I think
No.
because we grow every single time.
Yeah.
Experiences, the things that we go through, help us grow those
Mhm.
even more. The communication, the trust, right? But ultimately, like I tell my clerk, it's about enjoying life, and I think that's the biggest
Now it
one.
is, because before, let me tell you, he was, so when we had that talk, um I think there was a whole 360 flip in
Yeah.
him, because this guy right here, he was he, he would get on my nerves so bad because of just how because of just how like demanding he was. So demanding,
I was very strict.
so
Yes.
strict,
Oh
and
my
I was
god.
like, dude,
Yeah.
live a little, my guy.
Yeah.
Like, it was
Yeah.
and that's why um we got to that distance
Yeah.
part, because I was honestly tired of being told what to do. I don't like being demanded. You are not going to demand me what to do. Like, if you want me to do something, ask me like a normal person. If
Yeah.
not, I'm not some 5-year-old that needs to be demanded to do anything. And he was literally treating me like a 5-year-old. And it
Yeah. It
just wasn't
was.
me. It was a lot of people.
Yeah.
So,
And I think that that was a time in my life where so it was this dates back to, I think, what was it, when you were part of our organization. So as most of you know, I am part of an organization, and I think because of the work that we were doing at that time, the importance of the work, it was very stressful. And I'm like, you know what, we need to run a tight ship here. We can make mistakes, but understanding that we were so young. Now I can tell
so
you that I
young.
look back and yeah, there were a lot of mistakes made. Like I'm not one that has this ego where it's like, no, everyone was wrong but myself. No, I admit to it. Many times I told you know what, I messed up. I made a lot of mistakes, but when you're young, you don't think about these things at that moment. You're so convinced. You know what we were doing at the time had never been done before.
Yeah.
But I think I was forgetting that we were young. We were young adults. Some of them, that you were a
I think
teenager
I
still,
was like
right?
17,
Yeah.
17 or 18.
So I'm like, we need to live a little. Back then that was not my philosophy.
For
Believe
sure.
me, that was not my philosophy.
Believe
But
you me.
believe you me, that was not my philosophy. But it was. Now I look back, I'm like, you know what? Absolutely. I made a mistake, and I own up to it. But the fact that we can talk about it and laugh now, you know,
Oh yeah.
because I told ultimately that's what it is, right? I think yes, a lot of that being strict did help, but it also did
Push a lot of
push a lot of
it.
people away.
Yeah.
I'll be completely honest with you, right? Because I was so strict, I was so serious about things, and yes, it helped in the sense that thanks to that, people did see us as this, how disciplined we were,
Yeah.
right? But I think in the long run, it took away a lot of the memories that we should have had as teenagers or young adults, right?
Yeah.
But now we look back and we laugh at it because it was something that, again, you need to learn from your mistakes and stay with the lesson, right? Not dwell so much on that. What if this, what if that? That time is it's past, right? And I think those are ghosts of your past now that you shouldn't go back to, But the lesson, most definitely, now I'm implemented. Now Cassandra's back in the organization, in the leadership role, and I don't think there's ever been a reminder of those times in the
No.
time that she's been here. And she's gonna be right. I'll be the first one to say I did after 2018. I did feel this switch because I think when you go through something like that, you can no longer go to that version of yourself, right? You need to. It's almost like you're reborn. And I think if I can put it to you in terms, and it's different to everyone. I've talked to a lot of people who have gone through similar things, depression, anxiety, and it's a very different transition. But for me, I can tell you that transition took me 2 years after 2018 to really figure out what version of myself now I wanted to be, right? And I told myself I no longer want to be that strict individual that people feel intimidated towards, right? Because Cassandra was not the only one that would tell me, you're scary because you're always serious, you're always so
You're a
focused.
robot.
A robot, exactly, And I told myself, no, I no longer want to be that version of myself because clearly it was not only was it not helping, but to myself, it was making because I kept all those emotions in. There was never time for my emotions. It was always working, 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 working. So, and again, we'll talk about it more in detail. I think the different approaches when we talk about this, when we talk about mental health, which is very important to us both. But you know, put it now here in present time, I can tell you that Cassandra has taught me a lot of things about life, things that I never knew I would ever do. To be completely honest with you, And it's the simple things. If I can leave you all with something, it's the small things. It's those simple things that you just have to enjoy it. Sometimes you have to go about life not worrying about things that are out of your control. Someone very important to me one day told me, you have to take life as it comes to you, a day by day basis. I at the time I did not believe in that concept, but it was something that I really did learn a lot when this individual taught me that. And I'm like, you know what, it's right. Why would I worry about things that with the tomorrow that haven't happened yet? Worry about the things that I have now. And in that process, you or remember, and you would appreciate a lot more the people that are in front of you, the situations that are happening in your present time. So, but then Cassandra told me it's like you have to learn how to have fun sometimes.
He did not have
I
fun
did not. I
at
did
all.
not.
His
And
fun. Do you want to know what his fun was? Attending council meetings. I'm sorry.
not just concert meetings, okay? Forums, conferences, the whole
Whoopee.
spectrum. Yeah, for her,
Whoopee.
nothing fun. For me, it was like my Super Bowl. Again, I'm a nerd for these things, But yeah, I think.
Go ahead.
So yes, there was a time where I remember telling her, you know what, Cassandra, I want to be normal. And what did you do when I told you that?
I laughed. I said, you can never be normal, dude.
And I'll be honest with you, I did take a little offense to that because I'm like, yeah, I can, but clearly not. I think
You call me a normie. You're like, I don't want to be a
I don't want to
normie.
be a normie,
What's a normie?
And for those of you to understand what normie means, right? I always told myself I wanted to do something that was not your typical teenager, young adult, right? I was wanting to do something that had never been done before. And because of that, I started to put two categories, right? There are those of us that are change makers, and there are those of us that are normies. So normal people. Not that there's anything wrong, with being normal, having a normal life, but I won't lie to you. There is times where I look, it can be a simple, and I think I told you this, it was, and it would happen a lot when I would go to when I was a commissioner, I would go to a lot of the games, and I would see the families. That's when those thoughts of being normal came. To me, normal was that having a normal life.
Yeah.
You're more. I guess the more stressful thing was hurrying back to go see your kids
Yeah.
game, and being there with your family. Like I wanted that. And that's what I
Wanted
took
or
as had.
want?
I still want it, I still want it. But at that time, when I would tell myself this is what I want, I would tell Cassandra, like, this is what I mean by that. And she's like, well, she's like, one day you will, and God willing, it will be that. Um, but yeah, I think with time you're gonna see, right? Those are just some examples of what, and I think now like again, we told you we are gonna be straightforward. We are gonna be very honest. We were gonna keep it real. I told you, I think one of the biggest reasons how and why our friendship is the way it is, right? It was that night that really completely, I want to say, closed the bond, right, of what our friendship was, or what, if there was any doubt of what it was or what it could be, the train just passed by. Take two.
So see, so our friendship, literally, if you've ever had the friend, girls, you might know this, where it's like, oh, she's a screw it, she's a bitch. She looks like a bitch. That was literally the definition of our friendship, where it started off as like a hate thing, but now we're practically, no, I wouldn't say inseparable, but we're like two peas in a pod.
Yeah, I think boundaries are very important. Yeah, and
Yes.
I think we were very early on. We were adamant about that, right? We knew when to approach each other, and we were going. And I think understanding is a big thing. It's a big pillar, And I think for me personally, it's something that in my friendships, in my relationships, in my professional, field, I like to do a lot. You can listen all you want, but if there's no understanding, you're gonna be listening to the person tell you the same thing over and over again without really comprehending what is needed of you to either change something or adapt that concept of how can I help them, right? Listening helps a lot. Don't get me wrong, but I think in our generation, that understanding factor is missing, and
Yeah.
that makes frustration, that makes it tougher for us to want to talk to each other, because we feel like, why are you not helping me? I'm telling you all
Yeah.
this, but you're not giving me a solution, or you're not getting me, and
Yeah.
you hear that a lot, right, with our peers, like, oh, like, you're just watching me, you're just listening to me, but you're not doing anything. And it's not that they don't want to, but I think I really do strongly believe that because they don't comprehend, there's no understanding. So with Cassandra, I think not only does she understand, like, look, and it's creepy sometimes. Sometimes I don't have to tell her anything. Just by her looking at me, she knows what I mean. She knows. Same thing with her.
It's all about the
Yeah,
eyes.
and I tell her it's all about the eyes. We owe it to all of you for you to understand the dynamic that both of us have, and
Yeah.
how we think when it comes to a lot of these issues, right? A lot of the stories, it will be hard to us to share, right? And if we are sharing it here, it did take courage to share, because ultimately we want this podcast to help you navigate through a lot of these topics that, again, we normally don't talk about on a daily basis, right? And if our story can help you be some kind of motivation, some kind of guidance through what we went through. Look, I think ultimately, and I have told you this before, right? I tell even the people that I work with, if my experience can help you
Yeah.
be some kind of handbook so that you don't go through that, believe me, that ultimately that's what we want. Because what we went through, sometimes we went through it alone before someone like Cassandra got there to help me, or I got there to help her.
Yeah.
It's such an ugly feeling to feel powerless when you feel like nobody's helping you, right? And I think that's what's missing during our time now. People don't stop to help each other anymore. And I think
Yes.
something we talked about in many topics, like, throw anything, we will say, hey, COVID was a perfect example for us, right? You saw everyone caring for each other, caring for your neighbor, and then months passed, and it's like everybody went to their own selfish ways. So
Yeah.
if our stories can help you, then we know that we are doing a difference. And I think as we were planning this entire podcast, with the vision of Cassandra, I'm like, look, I want us to share stories, because I think story really does break away from, like you said, like the cookie cutter, concept of what it is to help someone, right? If you make it a very generic concept, it's not really helping. It's
Yeah.
it's let's see what sticks kind of thing, and if it
Yeah.
helps you, good. If it doesn't, oh well. And I think our stories, and you'll see, right, as we are talking about it, when they're hard on us, because we're having a hard time going through it. But ultimately, we know that the goal is to help all of you,
Yeah.
but ultimately, too, believe it or not, it's helping us, right? Because we're able to talk about it now. We're able to say, hey, I learned this from this
Yeah.
experience, right? And I think we have a lot of stories, a lot of stories, and I'm really excited to share a lot of those stories. Some of them include both of us in those stories. Some of us, it's more, personal to us, in our experiences with the topics. But
Yeah.
we're very excited. We're very excited to present, a lot of these topics to you, and I know that ultimately it's going to become something where we interact. We want this to make it casual. Have an interaction with all of you, and that you feel comfortable listening to all this as well. Because again, it's not something that we normally talk about on a daily basis.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, we are going to be having guests, whether it's someone for like mental health, like a
Yeah,
health advocate, whether it's our other friends coming in to
yeah,
talk about different things. I do want to talk about I have different friend groups. So I think just showing those different friend groups are going to be good. And then there's also going to be an episode on what it's like to lose a friend,
yeah.
what it's like to lose a best friend,
All of us have gone through
because
that, I think.
exact I think that's going to be really relatable. But also like what happens, or yeah, what happens when that friend comes back, and like how that bond is. So I think that's going to be a really good episode. And I'm just really excited for like, for us to share our stories. And just like Oliver said it, if there's a way that we can help with
Yeah,
our experiences, I think that's all that matters for me, honestly, is just being able to help
yeah,
you guys out. And then of course, I'm pretty sure you guys can for sure help us out.
yeah,
So if you guys have any ideas, any topics that you guys want us to talk about, any questions, eventually we'll do a Q&A.
yeah.
So we'll for sure be posting that on our TikTok, our Instagram, I think Facebook.
Facebook as well.
Yeah, so whatever questions you guys have for us, we'll for sure write them down. And then once the episode comes for a Q&A, we'll definitely get those questions out for you guys. We have a lot of exciting new episodes, a lot of different topics to talk about. I'm just really excited for this new project that we have for
Yeah.
both of us. It's really exciting. So make sure you guys like, subscribe to our YouTube, to our TikTok, to our Instagram, to our Facebook, all social medias. And yeah, I'll see you guys for the next first episode. Bye, guys.